Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Michael's Matters. Now, of course, as per usual, I'm Michael. Hi and hello. And recently, the financial brokerage Charles Schwab put out its annual poll about how much Americans believe they need to have in savings to retire. Now, needless to say, the number was very large, and it feels even bigger when you think about exactly how much you would actually have to save, even if you started when you were young to get to the number. But it is also really a stark contrast to how much Americans in general, on average, actually have in their savings accounts. This is because as Americans, we are notoriously bad savers and oftentimes end up in situations where the only savings that we have is the money that we put in and is floating around in that pool of money in the Social Security Trust Fund, and even that is getting drained. So today, we are talking about how much a surveyed group of folks who have 401ks in Charles Schwab in America think you would need to have to save to retire comfortably, how much normal Americans actually have in their accounts on average, and discuss if it is even possible to get to that ideal number. Now, this is Michael's Matters, and before we get to it, if you like these videos, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, if you at least find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help the channel to grow, and we are so thankful for that, but also because you get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. All right, now, let's get down to the video. All right, so while doing research for the videos, I often come across articles that pique my interest, but don't have really a full video to put into it for the other days, especially when there are dollar amounts that are in the millions like this one. I tend to find them really kind of interesting. And today I found an article in the USA Today, which, you know, is that newspaper that just kind of always randomly shows up at your door if you're staying at the Holiday Inn. The article was talking about a survey from Charles Schwab in 2023 that had asked 1,000 of its 401k plan participants back in April about how much they thought they would need in savings to retire comfortably. The number that they came up with was $1.8 million, which, you know, simultaneously sounds like an insurmountable amount of money that you would need to have in your savings, but also at the same time seems like it is not enough as well. Sort of like that stack of ribs on my plate at the summer barbecue. Yeah. But yeah, they thought $1.8 million would be enough to cover their expenses until, well, they're no longer retired. One of the most interesting facts about all this is that that number is up by a flat $100,000 from last year, from when they surveyed the same type of people, from the same pool of people who at that time only thought would be at $1.7 million to live retired comfortably. Lastly, according to the survey, only about 37% of the people who were surveyed said that they were, quote unquote, very likely to ever achieve the goal of having that number for comfortable retirement, which is down by 10% from the previous year, and almost 50% said that they feel like they are likely to reach their goal, which is obviously less than very likely. And then lastly, 14% said that they are not likely at all to reach their goals for retirement. So overall, this group of folks who were surveyed, they seem pretty optimistic, I would say. So looking at the survey a little bit more in detail, everything they're saying does seem to line up. But it's only going to make sense for a very specific subset of Americans. And by that, I mean a couple of things. First, Charles Schwab is a pretty well-known and a pretty prestigious financial firm. The folks who already have 401ks there are probably not the normal average American. They probably have higher income. This is evident in the numbers because as of 2023, the average American family earns about $71,000 a year. Now, why this is important is because of the fact that only a very small portion of Americans actually have 401k plans available to them, and even a smaller portion of them actually participate in their 401k plans. And the numbers get even fuzzier when we start to break it down by generation. For example, right now, around 60 million Americans participate in their 401k on a yearly basis, but that is a pretty small number in comparison to the 135.49 million full-time workers there are across the country. So obviously, the folks who are surveyed are a smaller group of people who have access to excess money to contribute to their 401k, and given the fact that a good portion of them expect to be able to reach that $1.8 million in savings in total, so when they break it down, it goes to 60% or $1,080,000 will be in their 401k, and the remaining $720,000 will come from things like work and annuities and Social Security. So yeah, I think that maybe probably these folks are in a higher higher income bracket than most of us average Americans. I mean, right now, even those who are in the quote unquote just about retirement age, those Americans who are presumably done most of their savings, who are 65 plus, they have an average 401k balance of $279,997. And that is about a quarter of what these folks who are surveyed is estimated to need to live comfortably. Even those folks who are, my age and having a fair amount of time to really pay into the 401k, with that max amount in 2023 of being $22,500, even allowing for inflation at the max amount, I mean, somebody like that would need to work another 48 years, basically into their 80s, to get to that $1 million number in a 401k. So it's definitely no easy feat. Lastly, I think very interesting from this surveys is the generational differences for how people who are near retirement, so think baby boomers and Gen X, view the likelihood of retiring versus younger generations like millennials and Gen Zs. The last time that they were surveyed was in 2022, that's the younger generations, but when you look at how many people in Gen Z think that they will be very likely to achieve their savings goals, is at 56%, though it is slightly less for millennials, slightly less optimistic at 54%, but that is still pretty good versus the 37% of those who were surveyed who were older Americans, or when the survey included older Americans, thought that they would actually achieve that level. These differences have a much, much bigger gap when we get down to the level of pessimism about not being able to achieve financial goals for retirement. Only 6% of Gen Z and 7% of millennials thought it would be not very likely at all. Now, even though we often group millennials and Gen Zs together, they actually have perspectives that are definitely nuanced when we look at retirement. And one example of this would be how long they think that their retirement money needs to last. So for Gen Zs, they believe that their money needs to last, or they're planning to save money for a retirement of 25 years, while millennials is only planning to save for 22 years, which kind of makes me wonder if Gen Zs are planning to retire earlier, which I think is very unlikely considering the continual march of Social Security retirement age towards the older side, or perhaps they are planning to live longer, which, is definitely very possible. So I guess my overall point to this survey is that one, it's valuable information, definitely very valuable perspective if someone is looking at, how they should try to understand retirement, but also it's sort of not really relevant to the average American because many of us don't have that kind of savings and don't really have a means of doing so, and might even be so late in the game that it is basically a pipe dream right now. But of these folks surveyed who, one, have expendable income, two, already have a 401k and a head start on it, and presumably from with employer contributions, they have some sort of financial plans. And these numbers probably make way, way more sense for them. But it really is like asking the top 20% of people with the whitest teeth how important having white teeth are. Of course, they're all going to say, of course they're all going to say that it's most important. But it's not really representative of everybody else who doesn't have white teeth or doesn't have a 401k plan. I think that the vast majority of folks who have not been able to save for the last year because of things like the pandemic or massive amounts of inflation or just the cost of living continually going up, the reality is that Social Security is going to be the major source of their retirement income rather than in these estimates where it's only representing about 20% of their monthly income. Additionally, that is why Social Security benefits should be adjusted. And by adjusted, I mean increased. And they can do this by using things that are not necessarily just putting more money into it, but they could do things like adjust the CPI calculator, which will allow for a much more accurate representation of how much benefits should go up every year. They could also update the income thresholds for taxation on Social Security benefits because they have not been moved up since basically the Reagan administration. And obviously the big one is that the holes in the Social Security boat in the trust fund that are causing it to sink, well, those need to be plugged up because not everybody, and in fact, most people are not going to be like these folks at Charles Schwab, or I think they call them Schwabies. Someone told me they call them Schwabies. It's not my word for them. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard them been referred to as Schwabies. So not everyone is going to be a Schwabie. So we do need Social Security as a safety net to be fixed to ensure that when we get to retirement age in the future, or even those folks right now, our older friends and our older neighbors and our older family members who are going to be getting the Social Security right now, we want to make sure that those benefits are there for them and also for us as we get there to help us make ends meet. All right, now, this has been Michael's Matters, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting or helpful or maybe even useful. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help the channel to grow, and we are so thankful for that. But also because you get notifications when our newest and most informative videos become available. So for Michael's Matters, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourselves, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy day.